Well, Meghan, welcome to Rise Above. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. You live in Connecticut?
I do.
Okay, so you flew in last night.
I did, yeah.
What's your favorite thing about Connecticut?
Oh my goodness. Pepe's Pizza in New Haven. Yeah. It has to be Pepe's. It can't be Sally's. It can't be Modern. You can hate me if you want for that, but it has to be Pepe's.
What's their specialty? Is it like obviously like Chicago has Chicago deep dish? Is it like just New York quality pizza?
This is thin crust brick oven.
Ooh.
And this is actually where New York got their pizza. I'm telling you.
You're losing a lot of listeners right now.
Connecticut pizza is superior. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. And I know you're from Long Island, but New Haven specifically, not all Connecticut pizza, but New Haven, Worcester Street pizza specifically. Pepe's has been around, my gosh, over 100 years at this point. And it has been in the top 10 pizza in the U.S. Lists for years and years. I mean, it's just so good.
Yeah.
A lot of people like the Clams Casino. I am not a shellfish person. The way I get it is bacon and garlic well done.
Oh my God, that's
how I get it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, you are sober how long?
Okay, so I came into recovery on June 4th of 2015, after in and out for years. I had a surgery where I was prescribed opiate painkillers back in December of 2019. And even though I did a lot of work beforehand on what the plan was and all of that, I ended up being dishonest about how I took that medication. So it wasn't like a full-blown in the streets relapse, but I did reset my date at that time. So December 31st of 2019 is my date.
Wow, so you're coming up on 6 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is amazing. And I want to say, we come into recovery, so opioids was my drug of choice.
Same.
And there was always, well, what if I have to get a surgery? What if I get into a horrible car accident and then they give me some kind of opioid, Dilaudid, whatever it is. And there was always that fear. And it was really a reservation for me. And I realized this time, so I have 7.5 years. I'm coming up on 8 years. And I've done the work like you said you did. And you probably went through everything again this time.
Yes.
Did it how it was supposed to be done. We have this spiritual awakening. And it says, the meetings we go to, that if you are spiritually fit, you can do anything.
Absolutely.
I mean, don't go hanging out at bars all the time, but like you can go to a doctor, be honest about the situation, talk to your support group about the situation. And then if you are spiritually fit, speak with your sober community, you can go through that. Because listen, if you get an arm amputated,
right,
like what are you going to do? You're going to just sit there and fight it through and say, no, I'm not taking anything.
Yeah.
Like, look, there's a time and a place. And I'm not sitting here saying, yeah, it's okay to take painkillers.
Right.
No, it's not. You have to speak with your sober community.
Of
but
course.
What I'm trying to say is it is possible to do it the right way. And I appreciate you sharing that, because were you able to get honest about that relapse and going outside of the boundaries a little bit of the prescribed medication?
Yeah. So I definitely was able to get honest right away. But I didn't even go outside the boundaries. The bottle said I could take 1 to 2 for pain. I lost all of my teeth in active addiction. Not all of them, but most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
you have great teeth now.
Thank you so much. That was the surgery.
Yeah.
These are implants.
Great
and
teeth.
That's the surgery that I had. A few years into recovery, I've got my feet underneath me. I've got a great job. My credit wasn't quite there yet, but I've built a relationship with my dad who's willing to co-sign for me to get a full top of implants, which is amazing. So I start the process of doing this, and the dentist that I saw, she said, you're going to need painkillers. And I said, oh, nope, I'm in recovery. I can't take painkillers. Like, I will not absolutely do that. Opiates are my drug of choice, and I can't do that. And she said, yeah, you're gonna need them. So in one day, in an 11-hour surgery that I was awake for, because anesthesia is very expensive. So they pulled 5 of my teeth. They cut my gums open, grinded down the bones, sewed my gums back together, installed these like posts for the screws, all of this in a day. And so the pain after was pretty intense for a few weeks. I mean, my whole face swelled up to the size of a chipmunk. It was very intense. And so my boyfriend, who I trust very much, said, hey, I'll hold on to your medication and I'll give it to you as prescribed. So it said that I could take 1 to 2. These are perk 5s. I mean, they're not, insanely strong. But he said, I'll hold on to it and I'll give them to you. So he did. After a couple of days, he gave me one, and my gosh, I was going to virtual meetings at the time because, even though it was before COVID, there were still some available. I was going to in-person meetings. I was doing all of the things. I had talked to my sponsor about this, all of it. There was one day that my mind just made a decision that he gave me one. I put it in my pocket. And I waited for him to give me the next one to take both. My intention was to feel something, right? But the bottle said I could take 1 to 2. So technically I wasn't outside of the parameters. However,
the shit we tell ourselves.
The stuff we tell ourselves, so I actually was in therapy at the time, and it just was a coincidence that my therapist had been sober for about 20 years, and she worked a 12-step program as well. And, I was telling her the story about this, and she said, have you told your sponsor that? And I said, what do you mean? What, what do you mean?
How dare you? No, I'm just kidding.
Right, exactly. And I was like, I haven't. And she said, well, maybe do, So I did. I told my sponsor what happened, and my sponsor gave me the choice. She said, you can talk to 100 people in this program, and 50 of them will say you didn't take a drink, so you don't have to reset your day. And 50 of them will say that you do because of the stinking thinking, right? So then I was hemming and hawing. Oh my God, I'm coming up on 5 years. I don't want to reset my date. It's not like I went out and, shot heroin. And then I was talking to my grand sponsor about it. And she said, Meghan, do you want to do what feels good, or do you want to do what feels right? And I said, oh, thank you for the gut punch. But I wanted to do what felt right. So I reset my date to the day after that happened. I came clean to my boyfriend about it. He was very kind and understanding, and was, thank you for the courage to say something. I mean, he wasn't angry. But it was tough for a little while because, I felt like I've, almost got 5 years, and I was, it was a very humbling experience. But I will tell you that as a result of that experience, that's when my true spiritual awakening happened. Ooh. Because prior to that, I'm an intelligent woman, and intelligence is a blessing and a curse, right? Because intelligence for the first few years of my sobriety blocked me from a true relationship with a higher power, because I was like, oh, just feels all really foo-foo. Like, I don't know. I grew up in a family that was religious, and it just felt like stand, sit, kneel, you're going to hell. I couldn't wrap my brain around how this God could love me and protect me, and because he felt punishing to me, and I still wasn't sure whether I believed. But I will say that after that experience, the fact that I had a slip and that I didn't end up selling everything I own with a needle in my arm in the street, that was a miracle that was not performed by me. And so, and especially because I didn't even come clean about it until I think it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks after it happened is when I told my therapist. That whole 2 weeks, I could have been running, but I wasn't, because I just kind of brushed. I was like, whatever. And then when I came clean about it, I realized how much danger I was in. And so ever since then, my relationship with my higher power has been very different, and my recovery has been different.
Hey guys, quick update. Every Monday night, I host the Rise Above Recovery meeting. It's an open meeting for any addiction, alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, whatever you're struggling with, you're welcome here. To get the meeting link and weekly updates, just email me at kevin@riseabovepod.com and I'll add you to the list. Also, if this podcast has helped you, please like, subscribe, or leave a rating. It helps us continue to spread the message of hope. Lastly, if you'd like to go even deeper with Rise Above, check out our Patreon. Supporters get access to live interviews and can chat with guests after the interview. Thank you. How did you feel a weight lifted off your shoulders once you got honest?
Of course.
And for you, and I'm asking this for people that are listening that are maybe holding on to that kind of secret, your intention was to feel something, right?
Of course.
Okay. So when you were able to come clean, was it tough going back into the rooms and saying, well, at that point, you probably said, I have 14 days or 15 days because it was 2 weeks after.
Yeah.
But the pain of restarting your day count versus the pain of holding on to that. And usually the story that we see in recovery, it manifests into a full-blown relapse.
Absolutely.
Do you think the pain of resetting your day count was as great?
So no, I think that, I believe that we're as sick as our secrets. Like that's just, I am honest about everything these days because I cannot hold on to that stuff because that pain is unbearable. That is what will make me pick up a drink or a drug.
Yeah.
The eating a slice of humble pie, that's not going to do it. You know what I mean? It's just not. I do remember though, the first meeting that I went into, when they say, is anybody coming back? And I raised my hand.
Oh, yeah.
And a person that I knew well was sitting behind me. And she said, like when she saw my hand, maybe if you're in meetings, don't do that. Because that was the thing that I was like, oh, wow, she maybe put me on some sort of pedestal with no reason, right?
Yeah,
but thought that this would never happen to me. And here we are. So I think I don't mean don't come clean. I mean, if somebody says they're coming back in a meeting, maybe give them a little grace, Right, exactly. And I was like, oh, that happened.
Yeah.
But no, I believe that the more honest I am, the more peace I can have. I really do.
So I have a very similar story to you. I originally came in March of 2013. I stayed sober for 3.5 years. Now, where our stories are a little different, my first 2 years, I hit the ground running. From 2013 to 2015, I was going, but 2 years sober, I was going to 5 or 6 meetings a week still. Had probably been through my steps twice. I still call my sponsor every day at that point in 2 years. My sober community, 90% of the phone numbers in my phone are people in sobriety. I'm doing well. And then things got good. I ended up getting married. I end up, getting the job and then the apartment in New York City. Because these things happen when you stay sober. Like good shit happens.
It does.
And I started to get those things back. And then slowly after the 2-year mark, I was like, I can dwindle down to 3 meetings a week. I could dwindle down to just my home group every week.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to my home group every other week. And then the commitment started to drop. Then I had no sponsees. Then everything just started to dwindle. And that's where I was talking about the spiritually fit aspect of the disease. I was not spiritually fit. Like you don't have to have a spiritual awakening to be spiritually fit. Spiritually fit, you're firing on all cylinders in recovery and you feel it, that gratitude. You're looking at things differently. The perspective is different. So 3.5 years sober, I'm working out in the gym. It's summer 2016 and I tear my rotator cuff and I had to get surgery. I go in for shoulder surgery. Now I'm married, but I married a Finnish girl who has no idea about opioid epidemic in the US. And like, she knows what it is, but she doesn't know the severity of it. And she doesn't know what happens to me when I start fucking popping perks. Like I become a criminal. And I did the whole thing. Doc, I'm in recovery. I told my sponsor, I told everyone in the meeting, I shared about it, whatever, to the one meeting I went. But then I was like, but Doc, it says at the meetings I go to, if you're spiritually fit, you can get through anything. So if you think I need painkillers, you could just give them to my wife. And I did the same shit you did. I doubled up. Well, first it was, 1 to 2 every 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Honey, that means 2 every 4 hours on the minute. Like, let's go. And then I would cheek and double up and I'm still justifying it in my head. I'm like, well, no, that accounts for the previous 4 hours ago. So it's like, I'm still sober. And I went out. Yeah. I went out hard. I went out very hard. I did what God saved you from doing. Yeah. I took the bad route and it was fucking brutal. It's crazy because it was a year and 3 month relapse, but I went out for 3 months. I think I stayed sober for 9 months. And then I went back out again after the 9 months for 3 months. Yeah. And then I just hit a rock bottom. Ended up coming back and I'm so grateful for that relapse. It's terrible. It sucks. Lost a lot more during that relapse, but it was great because my program, I knew. I fucking knew. And it like really woke me up. Yeah. And so let's take a huge step back. Yeah. Let's start from the beginning. Prior to 2015, you grew up in Connecticut?
I did.
Okay,
yeah.
so why don't you walk us through childhood and what growing up was like for you?
Sure. So I was born in 1985 and I'm 40 this year. It's wild.
I just turned 40.
Did you?
I'm 85 as well.
No shit. When? What
May.
month? May what?
May 24th.
I'm the 28th.
Wait, so
you were born 4 days before me.
Wait, you were born in 85?
Yeah.
Oh, so you just turned 40?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, you're 4 days older than me. That's wild.
It fucked me up a little bit.
Yeah.
Mentally.
It did. I mean, but I will say that I feel better at 40 than I did at 30, than I did at 20 for sure. I mean, 30 is when I got sober, right? A week after my 30th birthday is when I got sober. So 40 has been will be my best decade yet.
That's great.
I'm just manifesting that right now.
Yep.
So I'm originally from New Haven, Connecticut, North Haven, technically. I was born at Yale and I lived in North Haven until I was 5 with both of my parents who divorced when I was 5. I am an only child. So I remember when my parents divorced, being so young, I'm a believer that I was born with the disease of addiction. It is hereditary for me. Both of my parents both of my parents suffer from the disease as well. So when they got divorced when I was 5, I remember the only thing I ever heard them fight about was me. So in true alcoholic addict fashion, I made their divorce about me. I thought it was all my fault. I thought it was something that I did. So my parents put me in therapy young. I mean, I was 5. Both my parents, I will say, did the absolute best they could with what they had. Were either of them perfect? No. Is anybody? No. But my parents loved me, and that is without question. So I'm very fortunate for that. But that doesn't mean that my childhood was easy. Being an only child and both of my parents in active addiction and having them be divorced and having no siblings. I moved 22 times before high school.
Whoa.
Because my mom couldn't stay in one place for long. She was a person who kind of went wherever the wind blew her until she settled a little bit later in her life. and I was along for that ride. There were a lot of, we would move in with this guy she was seeing and that guy she was seeing.
Yeah.
And, um, and I have no recollection of anything bad happening, with any of these guys or anything like that. It wasn't like that. It was a lot of upheaval, right? When I was in third grade, let me back up. When I was in the second grade, so I was 7 or 8, my mom was on her way to pick me up from school and she crashed her car. She totaled her car. And it turns out that she was intoxicated. And I don't know if you know what a Fiero is.
A what?
A Fiero, the
A f-
car. It's like a little two-door sports car from like
Okay.
back in the 80s,
Okay.
90s. She had one of those, and the passenger side is where she hit the guardrail. So, like, if it had been 5 minutes later, I would have been done. I mean, there's no way I would have survived that as a small child. And so when she was arrested for DUI, the courts came and, got me, and they brought me to my dad. And they said, "Hey, you're living with your dad now because your mom, needs to do some things." So I went and I lived with my dad, and that was a really hard time. I didn't know at the time that it was because she was intoxicated. It actually came out when I was around 12 or 13. But I knew that I had been ripped away from my mom and placed in the hands of my dad. Again, both my parents loved me, but it was all of this upheaval and back and forth and felt like I was by myself because I didn't have a sibling to, go through this with. My dad had met my stepmother, and they were getting close, and I was close with her as well in the beginning. But after they got married, I don't know, things just shifted for me. In retrospect, as an adult who's done some healing and has done some therapy, I now know that my stepmother was unwilling to let my father enable toxic behavior, which is what I was exhibiting because it was what I knew. As a child, though, I did not understand that. And I was, "You're picking her over me. You love her more than me." So it created this whole like vortex of daddy issues for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
right? And I truly believed in my heart of hearts when I was a kid that he chose her over me, that he didn't care about me, that he loved her more than me. And a lot of this had to do with, you know, my mom, who again loved me so much, but she was very angry about the whole thing. And she wasn't necessarily quiet about it. And so, I always like to tell my, if I have friends or people that I know that I love that are going through divorce now and they have kids, like, hey, if you have things to say about that person, just don't say it to your kids because that messed me up a lot. you
Mm.
know, keep the kids out of it. All the kids need to know is that you both love them.
Yeah.
That's it. And because I have the experience of just being really hurt by all of that. Um, so when my mom got her act together, I went back to live with her. I wanted to live with her because I was at odds with my stepmom. And I could get away with murder at my mom's, not at my dad's because my stepmother wasn't having it. So I go back and I live with my mom, and I'm in middle school at this point. So like 6th grade. Middle school was a really, really dark time for me. Um, I was a young woman who developed early. And so therefore, I got a lot of attention from young men. And this made the girls dislike me,
Mm.
right? Middle school is vicious. I don't care what anybody says. I know high school can be tough, but at least you can like find your tribe in high school and be, middle school is just vicious. And I can't imagine, we didn't have social media. I cannot imagine what that is like now. I can't even imagine. So, middle school was a little bit rough. At the end of middle school, I met my first love, at 14, and we were together for a couple of years, and it was really great when we were together. I was in therapy on and off throughout my childhood, and when I was in therapy at that time, my therapist said to me, "This is getting really serious. And I think that it would be a great idea for you to just break up with him because it's too serious. You're too young. It's too much." Um, to me, it was just, I mean, he was my whole world. So I guess, that was maybe fair, but I took her advice. I don't know what the heck I was thinking, but I took her advice and I said, I can't be with you anymore. It's too serious. I'm too young. Like, I just can't do this anymore because my therapist said so. And it broke his heart. It broke his little heart. And I felt so bad, but I was sticking to my guns. And I remember about a week later, I found out that he was going out with my best friend. And we're in middle school. I mean, well, technically I'm in high school at this point. So I'm in high school, I'm a freshman in high school, and I find out that he's going out with my best friend. And I mean, that really, I lost her. I had already lost him, but I lost her. It was the first time that I ever felt just really hopeless. You know what I mean? And this is stuff that kids go through, but for a person who was born with the disease of addiction, everything is like amplified, you know?
These are big feelings.
Big feelings. And that was the first time that I attempted to hurt myself. Because I just felt like there was no escape from this feeling. And I didn't know about numbing yet. So in an effect to numb, I thought, well, I'll just, end it all. I will say that, did I actually want to die? No. Did I want the pain to stop? Yeah. So, and there was an element of it that I wanted attention. I wanted him to know how broken I was. I wanted him to know how much I was hurting. And I can admit that today as an adult.
Yeah.
That there was a part of me that wanted attention from taking those actions as well. So now I'm in high school, and because my parents were both alcoholics, I said I hated alcohol always. I said that I would never drink. I said that I would never, use drugs. I had no knowledge of my parents using drugs. But I said that I would never drink because I just, I knew that it was bad. And so I'm 15 at this point. I'm in high school, and I take my first drink. My first drink was technically in middle school, but it was a one-time thing, and it didn't happen again for a while. And so my first real drink was in high school. I was around 14, and I was in pain from this breakup. And I said, you know what? I'll just, my friends are drinking. I've been saying no all this time. I'm just going to say yes. So I remember I just it felt like someone was wrapping me in a warm hug. And like, I just knew I could be myself. I always had this feeling always of not being enough, of not being pretty enough, of not being skinny enough, of not being cool enough, of not being, I always had this feeling of like, just everybody else had some sort of insider information that I didn't have on how to like be okay in their skin.
The guide to life that you never got.
That no one ever gave me. So I drank, and I was, I loved it. I loved it. And I could be comfortable. I could dance. I could hang out with my friends. I could talk to boys. I felt comfortable in my skin. And so it went on for a couple of years where I'm just kind of, drinking on the weekends with my friends, partying, whatever. And just before I graduated high school, the summer before my senior year, now I told you that I'm an intelligent woman. I test really well. So like, SATs and the tests that we all take in school every year, like I test really well. I'm in all honors classes. I am on track to go to college and to make something of myself. And the summer before my senior year is when I did drugs for the first time. It started with smoking pot, and then it escalated to cocaine and ecstasy, and throughout my senior year of high school,
more of the party drugs,
yep. And also more drinking came along with the party drugs, yep. Right? And it's becoming, first it's a, weekly thing, and then it's a little bit more often than that. And then it's daily. And then it's, at least, smoking pot was every day. And I mean, there are people that smoke pot every day now and have perfectly manageable lives. But unfortunately for this alcoholic and addict, that is not possible.
Yeah.
So, my life became really unmanageable really quickly, and I ended up graduating high school barely. I had a couple of low grades because my priorities shifted. I wasn't about school anymore. I was about partying. And so, I didn't even apply to colleges because I was like, I'm not going to college. I told myself at the time that it was because I didn't want to waste my dad's money.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because my dad had always said that he would pay for school and, which is such a gift. I mean, that's a privilege, to have a parent who is able to pay for school and who will do that. But I just said, you know what? I don't want to party away your money, Dad. So I'm just not going to go. And so, as I got close to the end of high school, I was like, oh, yeah, fuck, I got to do something, you know? So I ended up going to cosmetology school. Now, I had always loved doing hair and makeup. Like, don't get me wrong. I liked it. Didn't know that it was going to be a career for me, but here we are. So I went to cosmetology school and I graduated from cosmetology school with my license. In cosmetology school, it was kind of a blur. I was right after high school, before entering cosmetology school, is the one time in my life that I was the victim of sexual assault.
Mm.
And so um, after that, my desire to not be numb grew, even more. I didn't not know this person. He was a friend of a friend. And we were in my house. My mom was home. She was downstairs. And I was being assaulted in my bedroom, but I wasn't sure whether or not I was actually being assaulted because initially I was into it. And then I wanted it to stop. And I said that, but it didn't. And so I was like, oh, I'm not going to make a scene. Like, I'm not, I don't know what the heck was going through my mind, but I thought that I was responsible for
Yeah.
this. And so, but I remember like my mom, all I had to do was scream. My mom was home, but I didn't. And in my mind, I was like, well, that means I'm responsible because I could have done something more and I didn't. In that moment, I froze. What I learned later in life is that I am a master disassociator, and that started when I was really young. So that is what happened in that moment. That's why I didn't scream. It doesn't mean it was my fault. Um, if even if you feel like I could have done this or I would have done that, or and I'm speaking to the humans, the men and women who are victims of sexual assault, it is never your fault. I didn't know that then, but I know it now. So my desire to numb became greater. And I was off to the races, man. I was just partying and the drugs were getting stronger. And, I started doing hair and that's when my active addiction really like took off. I got cash in my pocket every day. I'm making tips. I got money. I'm still living with my parents. I have no bills. I have no, I got nothing.
How old are you at this point? 18, 19-ish?
18. Yeah.
Okay.
18. And I will say that I did always have a boyfriend, except for like the small periods, in between,
Yeah.
right? Because, and you can chalk this up to my daddy issues at the time or my feeling of not being enough, or it could be 1,000 things, but I didn't feel worthy of anything unless someone desired me. So when you see me thinking about like, when was that? I'm thinking about what guy I was with at the time because that is how I know when it was. Because I was a serial dater. I was one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, because I didn't feel worthy unless a man loved me. And so, yeah, I mean, when I was 18, things started to get wildly out of hand. I went to my first detox at 19. Where I am from, I'm from Bristol, Connecticut originally, which is the home of ESPN and the compounds. And, so the first time that I went to detox, I went to Bristol Hospital. This is a dual diagnosis unit. So they will not let you in unless you are a dual diagnosis, which is mental health and addiction. So I had to be dishonest and say, hey, I really want to end my life in order to get
sorry,
into.
that's not
no,
a laughing. I
that's
thought
okay.
you were going to make something up and be like, I'm bipolar and I have addiction.
They'll only take
Got
you
it.
on a hold to detox.
Got it.
If you are suicidal.
Got it.
So I had
My
to,
apologies. I did not.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I had to say that I was suicidal in order to get into this unit, into detox. And so I did. And I detoxed at that time. And, I remember I was doing a lot of pain pills at the time. I was doing, I remember the first time I did a pain pill, I was probably 17. I had my wisdom teeth out. And back then, this is 2002. I don't know what my dentist was doing, but I got dilaudid for having my wisdom teeth out. And they weren't even they were impacted, but it wasn't like that bad,
Yeah.
He gave me Dilaudid, and then he gave me these other little pills. I have no idea what they were. And he was like, these are the kickers. And if you take these, then they'll intensify those. And I was like, okay.
What? Well, out of the doctor, some doctors are crooked, but they didn't know then.
They just didn't know. I don't think that he had
pain.
Yeah.
That's what
I don't think that he had like any ill intentions at all.
Right.
He was an old man.
Right.
Really of course that wouldn't happen now. But
you got a good doctor.
I
wish that doctor took my wisdom
God, and he
teeth
gave me refills for wisdom teeth. He gave me refills. Did I need the refills for pain? No. Did I want more of those things though? Heck yeah.
Of course.
The first time I became high on opiates, I didn't even want to drink anymore. I didn't. This was it for me. It was like somebody wrapped you in a warm blanket and just like whispered in your ear that everything's okay now.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I don't want to glorify it.
No.
It is that opiate. I will never forget my first opiate high. And I remember saying to myself, I want to feel like this every day of my life.
Every day.
I could run for president right now.
And people would vote for me. They would.
Did you get energy when you did opiates?
Yes.
I got energy as well. People are always like, I don't know how you like them. I used to just fall asleep. They're terrible. No. I'm like, no, I'll clean your house.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And especially as the addiction wore on, right? Yeah. Because then you're dead without them, right?
Yeah.
So, I remember.
Up.
Yeah.
You ramp up with the opioids.
I ramp up. I go to this detox. I come out. I go to IOP and I'm like, I'm using an IOP. I mean, it didn't stick.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Boston when I was 21. My best friend was a senior in college there. And I have a career that I can take anywhere. Mm-hmm. I can do hair anywhere. So we go to Boston. And she had Craigslist roommates, and she was like, I really just want you to live here. And so I moved in with her so that she didn't have to have Craigslist roommates for her senior year. We lived in South Boston. I lived in Dorchester and Fields Corner, and it was a time. I was 21. I had my first credit card.
It's the worst.
It was a time. A time was had.
Did you rack it up right away?
Oh my God. They gave me a line of credit and they were like, yeah, you can even get cash advances with this. And I said, word, because what I wanted, you couldn't buy with a credit card. And so cash advances were, yes, I'll take that line of credit. Thank you so much.
20% fee? Sure.
It's fine. Don't even worry about it.
I don't care.
Don't even worry. It's fine. It's totally fine. And it got to the point where I was writing checks to myself at midnight to deposit into the ATM because you can take out the first 100 even though your account balance is 0, and then I'll deal with the fallout in the morning, right? And then I would do it again at 1 a.m. because it was like it reset at midnight. So I would do it at like 11:59, then I would do it at 12:02 or whatever. And so I would have $200 and I could go, and my account is jacked. I mean, I'm thousands in the hole, but it's fine. So yeah, in Boston was a really crazy time. My best friend, we were 21 and we were living in Boston. She was dating a DJ. So you can only imagine where we were going. I mean, a DJ who was doing radio, but also doing parties. And he lived in New York. And so we would get on the Fung Wah bus. Have you ever been on the Fung Wah bus? I know you live close to New York. It is a bus that would take you from Boston to New York and back, Chinatown to Chinatown. Right? It was cheap. It's like $15, but you could drink, you could do drugs, you could do whatever you wanted on this bus. and nobody would say anything. They were in a lot of accidents. Fortunately, I was never in a Feng Hua accident. But, this was the way to get back and forth, the cheap way to get back and forth from city to city. So, yeah, I mean, that was, and if any of your listeners have ever been on the Feng Hua bus, they will know exactly what I'm talking about because it was a wild time. But I'm doing a lot of drugs. I'm doing more uppers now because I'm drinking a lot. I'm at the bars. I'm doing, so opiates kind of fell off for me for a while, and but I am doing a lot of uppers, and I am doing things that I said I would never do for these uppers. I've learned that the things I say I'll never do, those are just yets, because I will eventually if I keep on the path that I'm on, right? So, I am exchanging things for drugs that I said I would never do. And so, and people are aware of this. Like my best friend that I'm living with, she's like, "You're embarrassing." And I didn't care. Because I'm doing these things with her boyfriend's friends because they have something that I want. And, I learned how to use my body to get what I wanted, and I'm not saying that it was a regular occurrence, but it happened a few times. And I can't be ashamed of that. It is what it is. I mean, it happened. And now it's part of my story that can hopefully, if someone else hears that and they've done that and they think it's the worst thing they've ever done, I promise you, it's okay.
I was actually just gonna say, I wanna thank you for sharing that, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
And the level of vulnerability that you're showcasing just to help someone else who's down and out, down and out right now, and thinks that they're the only one, that they're compound misery. I'm just going to continue to use. You don't have to. You're not alone.
Right.
So I want to thank you for sharing that. And I want to ask, so you're 21, 22-ish in Boston running amok. You went to the Detox. You went to IOP at 19. Did you hear the message at all?
No.
And was it fucking with your highs at that point? Because I remember my first meeting that I went to, using was never really the same after.
Yeah. I hadn't been to a meeting yet. I had only been to IOP and Detox.
Okay.
My first meeting was in Boston.
Okay.
I was 21. My best friend had moved to New York at the end of our lease to live with her boyfriend because he lived in New York. She had graduated from school. Our lease ended in like August and she graduated in May. So she moved. This was 2006, right? 2000.
Yeah, we were 21 in 2006. We were 22 in 2007.
Yeah, this is 2006. So she had moved, or no, it must have been 07. I must have been 22 because she graduated from college, which is 4 years after high school. Graduated high school in 03. That makes sense. So she graduated from college. She moved to New York. I stayed in our apartment. And I actually sublet her room without her knowledge because her parents were still paying for this apartment. But I sublet her room to my dealer so that it was readily available.
Was it your perk dealer? Like your uppers dealer?
No, he was actually my weed dealer.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? It would be so nice to just always have this in the house. And there was a huge fallout from that. We actually didn't talk for a while because she came back. She was like, "Oh, I'm going to come stay for the weekend." And he's in her bed. She didn't take her furniture. It was bad. I don't condone this behavior because I did a bad thing.
Are you guys friends now?
Unfortunately, we're not. But the reason,
other reasons.
Yeah, other reasons.
Yeah, we don't have to get into it.
Other reasons. I mean, we are. I love her so much, and I know that somewhere she loves me, but she is battling her own fight right now.
Yeah,
and so I don't know where she is.
Got it.
So we are just, I mean, things are wild. I moved back. Oh, I go to my first meeting in Boston.
Things get bad enough where you're like,
My father was in recovery already. And so he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" I'm by myself in my apartment. He said, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" I said, "No, I'm just, having some wine." He was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, I bought this." I had a gallon of, Carlo Rossi, the sangria. Oh God. So I'm drinking that to the face, the whole gallon. And my dad calls, and I'm probably pretty intoxicated at this point. And he said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm just, hanging out in the apartment. He said, Meg, like you're drinking a gallon of wine by yourself on like a Tuesday night. Like, have you ever thought about maybe trying an AA meeting? Like, you don't have to, but it's working for me. Like, I don't know, Dad. I don't, but like a week later, the money ran out. I could no longer cash fake checks. Like the bank caught up with me. All the money ran out.
All
Like
your
I had
shenanigans.
nothing. All my shenanigans. I had nothing. So that was when I was like, maybe I'll try a meeting, because I don't have money to do anything else. So I went to an AA meeting, and I remember I met someone right away that I really liked. I met a woman I really liked, and I asked her to be my sponsor. And she said, okay. But I was going to meetings every night, and then I was going home and getting intoxicated. Like I wasn't ready. I had moments of desperation, but it was just when I couldn't get any money. It wasn't like desperate to stop, you know? Um, and so, yeah, so I went to some meetings, and then eventually I just stopped going. And when our lease was up, I did move back to Connecticut. I moved back in with my dad. I had lived with my dad. My dad and my stepmother had split um, briefly. They were separated when I was in hairdressing school, and my dad, right around the time he got sober, because this is a few years back now, he had gotten his third DUI. So he lost his license. And so he asked me, hey, I want to build a relationship with you. I'm buying a house in Bristol. I want you to live with me while you go to school. And also, I can't drive, so I need you to drive me places. It wasn't exactly like that, but and he made his amends to me. I mean, my dad's amends to me at that point in time was he bought me a car, and I was like, thanks, Dad, but like, my father's was very new in recovery at that point. He was just trying to,
Yeah, of course.
So, I moved in with my dad. I moved back in with my dad after I got home from Boston, and that's when I met Eric. And Eric was the first boyfriend I ever had that was doing heroin. I didn't know it at first. We met through mutual friends, and I remember going to his house. He lived in another town, and I remember him asking me, hey, here's my key. Can you go to my house when you get out of work tomorrow, and can you let the dog out? Yeah, of course I can. I'll go do that, I had been over there. I just, hadn't not when he wasn't home.
How long have you been dating at this point?
I'm still living with my dad, so I don't know, a month maybe.
Okay.
We've been dating.
So fairly new.
Yeah, fairly new.
And you're what, 22?
I'm 23-ish at this point.
Got it.
So I go to his house, and I let the dog out, and I'm hanging out with her, petting her. I'm sitting in the living room, and I see shot glasses full of water on the coffee table. And I was like, what the hell is that? It's weird. Now, I knew what a wax paper baggie of heroin looked like because I had sniffed them before, and periods in my throughout. But I didn't know what these shot glasses of water for. I'm like, is this vodka? I'm smelling. It's not. It's water. Weird. And then I figured it out. I figured out that he was actually injecting, and that's what the water was for. And I called him, and I said, I can't do this. Somewhere in my brain, I knew that like this was dangerous for me. And because I like to party, and, injecting is something that was just terrifying for me. And I said, yep, I'm so sorry. I can't see you anymore because I just can't be a part of this. And he said, please don't leave. I love you. Now, it's been a month, but we're both addicts. So like, here's the thing. Toxic comes with the territory, right? So like love bombing and like we're in love after 5 days, it's just part of the territory.
Yeah.
So he said, I love you. I promise I'll stop for you. I said, oh, thank God. That'll be great. I just really appreciate that. Thank you. If you'll stop, I'll stay. This is fine. This is absolutely fine. We know that I can't stop for anybody else, and no one else can stop for me. It has to be because they want it. So he promised me that he would stop for me, and but he didn't, and that's not his fault. It just, he believed it when he said it,
Mhm.
but he was also an addict and an alcoholic. So um, he didn't stop, um, and for a while I joined in with him, but like I was sniffing, or I was, I would take Suboxone recreationally, like whatever, I was not like injecting. And then one day, I don't even remember what happened, but I was really upset about something. And I said, I'm just going to do it. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, I am, because if you don't do it for me, I'll find someone who will. Because I didn't know how to, I didn't know the
Of
mechanics of it
course.
all. I didn't know how to do it. So he did it for me. And the first time that I experienced that, it was it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I mean, yeah, I had taken pills before, I had sniffed pills before, and like, yeah, that it's still that feeling, but it is amplified in a way that, and it's instant, and it is just, again, like someone's wrapping a warm blanket around you. I want to feel like this every day for the rest of my life. Now, just because it felt good doesn't mean it brought good things to my life, because it didn't. I don't want to glorify this either. But yeah, initially it was freaking fantastic. Um, but that started a massive spiral of, we were stealing in order to support our habit. We were stealing scrap metal. He had a pickup truck. So we were stealing scrap metal, and we were bringing it back to the scrapyard, and he was getting arrested all the time. And he would tell the cops, oh, she had no idea the stuff was stolen. I picked her up after I stole it so that at least I could stay home. We had a cat and a dog in the apartment that didn't have electricity because it had been shut off. And there was no food, and it was so disgusting. And there was like, it was just so bad. It was so, so bad. We
Mm.
were living in a third floor apartment in the middle of summer with no air conditioning, no fans, no electricity. The fridge didn't work. Like it was really, really bad. Um, and we were just every day, we were out all day stealing, going to see the deal. Because, you wake up and you got to get a front in order to start your day, right? Because you're sick. So I had to get something advanced to me from the dealer, and then we would go and make all this money, and we would make money to buy what we wanted. And then we would say, okay, we're just going to save some for the morning, but you never do. We never did.
Mhm.
So we wouldn't save anything for the morning. And it was a vicious cycle every single day. Because it's not like we could just get a front and then go get a job.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
we needed to bring back that money that day, or we were in danger of bodily physical harm, right? So like it was just really, really bad. And I remember when he went, I went to detox a few times throughout that time, thinking that like I couldn't do this anymore. But as soon as I got out, I went right back to him, and he hadn't been to detox, so it was just right
Mm.
back. I remember there were a few times. There was one time in particular that he overdosed, and because overdosing was pretty common back then. I'm very fortunate that this was before fentanyl really hit the scene. I mean, yes, it was out there, but not like it is today.
Mhm.
Because I would for sure be dead, which is another miracle that I did not perform. But he overdosed one time, and I had to call the paramedics because I went and got my downstairs neighbor. We got him into the shower. I'm running cold water on him. He's not waking up. And I had to call 911. I had no choice. Like this kid's gonna die. And so I called 911, and they came and they administered Narcan. And I remember when he woke up, he was so mad at me because they administered Narcan and it had robbed him of his high. He was so mad at me. And I was like, "Hey, you were dying." Like,
Yeah.
you were actually dying. But yeah, it was wild. And the way that they treat you when you go to the hospital on an overdose, it's not kind. Maybe it is now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't. This is 2008, 2009.
Mhm.
And so he had racked up so many larcenies that like at one point the judge was like, "Hey, you're actually, going to go to jail." And it was after we got arrested together, actually.
What happened when you guys got arrested together?
So my poor dad, we had borrowed a chainsaw from my father to go do a job. Really, we were pawning it. And then we were going to, but like on hold. And then we were going to go and make some money and get what we needed and get the chainsaw back and bring it back to him. Well, my father called me and said, hey, I need the chainsaw. And I was like, actually, you can't have it because it's in the pawn shop. You can go pick it up, pay for it if you want, but like it's in the pawn shop because it was on hold, like a loan type deal. Right. And then after a certain amount of time, they,
How many days had it been sitting in there? So, for example, how long did you have it borrowed?
It's a 30-day loan. And it was probably day like 22 at this point, and
so
we hadn't
it was
picked
over
it up.
3 weeks that you borrowed
Yeah,
it.
we hadn't picked it up. And so he called and said, hey, he knew. He didn't really need his chainsaw.
Yeah.
He knew. My father's not a stupid man. He's in recovery.
Yep.
Like he knew.
Yeah.
So I said, you can't have it unless you take me to the pawn shop and we can get it out. And he was like, okay. And then he went home. Now he's back together with my stepmother at this point. My stepmother is a strong, fierce, incredible woman who had done a lot of work on codependency and refuses to stand for enabling of any kind. So she said to him, we're calling the cops. And I'm sure that he probably didn't want to, but at the same time, she's the one that's done this work. She's the one that knows how to handle a person who you want to stop enabling and what, And so they called the cops, and Eric and I were both arrested for felony larceny, felony burglary, and felony conspiracies to both. So, now I didn't have a record at this point. Eric did. So he ended up going away. I was released on a promise to appear. So he went into jail. And while he was in jail for that, I mean, I was so broken. I remember my father came to my house to tell me that he was going to call the cops. And I met him outside. You can't let anybody in this house. I mean, it's so bad. My house, my apartment at the time, which also we were very delinquent on rent. And I mean, we were in the process of being evicted. And so I met him downstairs, and he told me that he was going to call the cops, and I'm begging him not to because I know Eric is going to go away. And without Eric, I don't have the strength to be able to obtain the amount of scrap metal I need in a day to support my habit. And so I screamed and cried and ran down the road. I stood in front of their car. They're trying to drive around. I mean, it was like from a movie. I was just beside myself. But he said, no, I'm doing it. So get your shit ready. Get ready. So after Eric went to jail, I decided that I was in fact done. I was done. So I wrote him a very long letter. We loved each other so much, Eric and I, as much as two people who are in the depths of active addiction and really, really toxic can love each other. But I knew that if I stayed with him, I was never going to get better. And so I left. I wrote him a letter, like a 7-page letter, and I left him. And I sent it to him in jail. And I'm sure that was difficult, but I knew he was safe. So I wanted to do it this way. I didn't want to wait for him to come out. Also, I didn't trust myself to actually leave. So I sent it to him, and I went to Detox. I went back to Barnes 3 in Bristol. I lied about being suicidal. I got back into Detox, and I came out and I went to IOP. And wouldn't you know it, in IOP, I met the love of my life.
Okay, let's pause. How old are you at this point?
24.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
20. Eric and I were together for about 3 years, so maybe 25.
Okay.
At this point.
So it's like 2010-ish, 2009, 2010.
Yes, it's exactly 2010. You are correct. Yep.
So, so you go into IOP, you meet the love of your life.
I meet the love of my life.
Are you being sarcastic?
I'm being very sarcastic. Okay. You know how I knew that he was the love of my life? He paid attention to me. That's how I knew. And it's funny because his drug of choice was different than mine. So we were going to save each other, actually. We were going to, it was going to be so great. And so I left Eric to get sober, and then I met this person, and I use Eric's name because he passed away in 2011 from an overdose in his truck by himself. And he didn't have any family. He had his best childhood friends' parents loved him a whole lot, so they ended up taking care of the aftermath of that. Um, they actually legally adopted him at one point when he was like close to 18 because his mom was really struggling and they were able to like take better care of him. But when he died, he didn't have any family. The state ended up cremating him. There was no real service. It was just, so he died in September of 2011. And that's why I use his name because he passed away.
Mm.
I love him still. I know that I kind of know that he's with me. A lot of the time, I had survivor's guilt for a long time, but like I know that he's with me and I see signs every now and again
Yeah.
that like he's hanging with me. So I appreciate that very much. And I can't wait to give him a big squeeze when I get there, hopefully a long time from now. Um, and so I meet this guy and we'll call him T. And he's the love of my life. He pays so much attention to me and he tells me how beautiful I am all the time. And he tells me, that he wants to marry me and have kids with me. And this, we're together for a week, but this is it. This is true love. And so, after being together for a month, he says to me, hey, we both are you know, newly sober, even though we were, using and stuff a little bit here and there, a couple of pain pills here, smoking there, drinking here. He said, let's just get away from all this. We'll go and we'll just start a brand new life and we'll just be so amazing in Florida. And I said, what are we going to do there? And he said, my uncle lives there and he has a job waiting for me. We're going to make a lot of money and we're just going to live in Florida, in the Tampa area, Bradenton to be specific. And I said, you know what? The Gulf? Let's go. Let's do it. So I got in a Penske truck. I knew this man for a month. And I got in a Penske truck with him and I moved to Florida. I had nothing. I mean, I had the clothes on my back. I had, nothing. He had more stuff than I did. We packed up his apartment into the Penske truck and we moved to Florida. And we got here and you know, um, it was it was just bad. It was 2 years of really, really bad. I mean, it was just bad. There was abuse. There was a lot more mental, physical. It wasn't as horrendous as stories that I've heard, but it was really bad. We were both very toxic. I was also toxic with him. I'm not going to say that I wasn't. I'm not going to
Mm.
say that I was just an angel.
Yeah.
I was, also really just yucky with him. And so um, we move. We're in Florida, and we're doing a lot of pain pills because that's what you did back then in Florida. I mean, it was easy, right? Um, the blues. I mean, we were just, that's what we were doing. And in 2013, I got a call that my mom was diagnosed with CML, chronic myeloid leukemia, and I'm an only child. And my mom and I's relationship has always been one that was very codependent. We loved each other so much. She enabled me most of my life. She enabled my toxic behavior. My mom was uh, a heavy drinker, but her life always remained I don't wanna say always, especially when she settled a little bit and, after I got out of high school, her life remained much more stable than mine did. I 'cause I'm ripping and running, and she's just drinking a lot, but has a job and is home every night and is you know what I mean?
Mm.
So, she enabled me and she thought she was doing the best thing she could do for me. She thought she was loving me. She didn't know any better. And so when I moved home, I said I was moving home to take care of my mom, and I meant that. But I didn't take care of my mom. I moved right back into Waterbury, Connecticut, which is a hot spot for heroin. And at that point, I was teaching. I moved back with T, and at that point, I was injecting myself and doing it for him. You know, um, and we stayed with his sister for a little bit, but that didn't last long because we were a mess. Um, and for the next couple of years, till 2015, we were just bouncing from place to place. One person would let us stay with them until it was enough. And then, and we were just, I don't know what the hell, we were just stealing and robbing and selling in order to get our fix.
Mm.
My active addiction ended with me and him living in a tent community in Bristol, where I'm from. And I mean, I was bathing in Burger King bathrooms, like bird bathing in Burger King bathrooms, and I was stealing from grocery stores to eat, and I was selling drugs so that I could become intoxicated. Not enough to make any money, just enough so that I wasn't sick. And the thought entered my mind again to end my life because I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't. It was so bad. Um, you know, it was summer and it was hot, and I remember um, I developed a fungus on my on my skin from like just not being able to take care of myself. My front tooth had completely broken off. It was just it was absolutely awful. And the only reason that I wasn't using my body to get what I wanted at that point was because he was so toxically possessive that he wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
But if I could have, I would have.
Yeah.
And so that I was walking down the road with him one night, and we were walking back to our tent, and I was walking down like a busy, the main road in Bristol, Route 6. And I remember the cars were coming, and I really, really entertained the idea of like stepping in front of a car. Because I couldn't imagine living like this anymore. But I didn't. And I instead called the helpline, which is 211 in Connecticut. And I organized to get into a detox facility the next day. And that was June 3rd of 2015.
Okay, so you go in, you take this huge leap of faith,
I do.
and you go into a detox. From there, did you go into a 28-day
sure
program,
did.
inpatient?
I went into a 28-day program, and wouldn't you know it, I met the love of my life.
Again?
I-
Did you really?
No, I met a man who paid attention to me, who I had no business talking to. He was older than me. It's somebody I never would have given the time of day, otherwise. But I was in a locked unit, and he was telling me I was pretty.
I was co-ed.
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. And so in Hartford, actually, at Mount Sinai, and I had no business with this man. He was there on jail diversion. I was there on my own accord. And so he kissed me
In rehab.
in rehab,
Oof.
and we got caught. So I got kicked out. I did.
How many days in?
I was at day 17
Okay,
when
so
I got
3
kicked out.
weeks-ish.
They kept him in because he was on jail diversion. It's a lot more paperwork to kick him out than it is to kick me out. But they gave me a bed in their waiting facility. They have a place called the Recovery House where people wait to go to their next facility. Like
Got
if you're
it.
going to a halfway house, if you're going, it's like a holding place. So they gave me a bed there. They didn't just kick me into the street. Thank
Mhm,
God.
mhm.
But I'll tell you what, that saved my life. It's so funny. A pastor had come in the day before, and I was like, I don't know about this religion thing. Like, I don't know. But I said I was talking to the pastor about it a little bit because like I knew that I needed some form of a higher power, but like I was really, and I stayed, sort of resistant to the idea for years after this. But this was a moment that I had. I got on my knees the night before and I said, God, I need you to relieve me of the obsession of this man because my God, I have no business doing this. And I need to get sober and I need to stay sober. And so the next day is when they caught us. And I said, you're funny. You are funny.
God
Because
did for you.
he did for me what I couldn't do for me. Right. Because I never would have stopped seeing this man. And I don't know where that man is today, but I don't believe he's sober.
Yeah.
So
Did you go into, after the waiting facility, did you go into a sober living or?
after the waiting facility, I went into the intermediate program, which was another 90 days of inpatient with
Wow.
like, you could go out for 2 hours a day, then 4 hours a day. And
Yeah.
you could, and that was I had nowhere to go. I was homeless.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? Let me just do as many programs as I can. Now, also, I want to be sober. I'm doing the work. I'm going to meetings at this point because you can go out to go to meetings when you get to
So
intermediate.
you're doing it.
So I'm doing it.
It's the longest amount of time sober you've had.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Without a doubt. So I, and then when I graduated from the intermediate 90-day program, I went into a 6-month halfway house through the same umbrella.
Mhm.
of nonprofit healthcare organization in Connecticut. Um, and so I'm in the halfway house, and then I started working, and I started, I learned how to have a bank account. I didn't know how to, I had a bank account, but I was very bad at it. We took turns cooking. There's 15 people in this house, and we took turns cooking for each other. So I'm learning how to be a human among other humans
Mm.
that is sober and is productive. Right. That's what I learned in this halfway house. And from the halfway house, I went into a sober house. And I lived in the sober house for about a year. And then I got an apartment with another sober woman. And we were there for about 18 months. So by this time, it's 2018, 2019. And I've been sober for a few years. I have worked the steps with a sponsor. I was not sponsoring women yet. But I'd landed my dream job. I was, I made a commitment to myself after that man, in rehab that was, paying me attention. The suggestion in 12-step recovery is a year of being single. I committed to 3.
3 years.
Yeah,
Good for you.
because I needed to be okay on my own 2 feet. I needed to be able to find myself, figure out who I was, and fall in love with myself so that I could be in a relationship out of want and not need.
Mm.
And I committed to that. And I worked on it in therapy. I did a lot of affirmations in the mirror. Um, and affirmations in the mirror is one thing, but affirmations in the mirror with no clothes on, when you have struggled your entire weight with like, or your entire life with like what your body looks like, or the way that you present to the world, that did something to me that was like irrevocable. Um telling myself not just that I'm pretty, but that I'm enough, and that I'm worthy of love, and that I am worthy of success, and
Mm.
all of those things. Like, I'll tell you, initially it made me really angry, and then it made me cry, and then I started to accept it. Right.
Mm.
So yeah, 3 years. And at that 3-year mark, I started dating someone. We dated for a year. And at that year is when we moved in together, and we're still together. He's wonderful.
So you talked a little bit about in 2019 the relapse that you had.
Yeah.
Um, what was it that was missing from your first stint in sobriety that maybe you have changed, learned from, and applied now that made that difference?
God,
God,
there's no question.
you didn't have a higher power.
It's not that I didn't have one, it's just that it was very sporadic. Um, you know, they say now my higher power is not, it's very fluid. I can't
Yeah,
define it,
I got it.
but that's okay. The most important thing is that I know that it's not me,
Hmm.
right? So, but it says in the book, in the big book. I'm not a Bible reader, but it says in the big book, which is a book of 12-step recovery. He comes to those who seek him. I was not seeking. I was not putting in my end of the relationship. God was always doing for me, but I was not putting in my end of the relationship because I was skeptical. I was like, yeah, I don't know. This is weird. I don't. And so, my higher power, my relationship with my higher power blossomed after the relapse.
Mm.
And I believe that that is what I was missing. I often ask myself when I have people that are close to me relapse, or when I see people relapse that have a long time, like, what is it? And the answer I get from the old timers is always the same. And that's where sick is our secrets, right? I don't know that I was really keeping any secrets intentionally. But I do know that I wasn't, maybe I was, because I was presenting as though my relationship with my higher power was great, but it wasn't,
Mm.
so maybe that's the lie that took
I
me out.
I had the same experience as you, and it's keeping. We need to put the effort into, like you just said. And like when I used to pray and believe in a higher power when shit hit the fan and I needed a foxhole prayer or something like that. But also, too, I always used when things were going really well.
Mhm.
I would pick back up after like a small stint of sobriety when things were going really well. When things were horrible and my back was up against the wall, I could always come through.
Yeah.
But when things were really good, I'm like, well, things are kind of good right now.
Yeah.
I can, do one perk. I can
Right.
do.
Just one.
And something that I had to implement was prayer every single morning.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have a consistent schedule where I was tapping into a higher power. And that made all the difference in the world because I forget a lot.
Yeah.
And even if I don't need to turn my will, or maybe I need to turn my will over, but it's not as severe of a situation as yesterday, I'll forget.
Yeah.
And when you're praying every day, it's harder to forget.
Yep.
So I love that you said that. You're coming up on 6 years of sobriety.
Yes.
Your life has changed significantly.
Drastically.
What is life like for you today? And what are some of the tools that you implement on a daily basis?
So I am big on emotional sobriety. So as far as tools, the 12 steps, always, I go on retreat every 6 months and I work the 12 steps in 3 days. It's a lot less of like a huge fourth step or a huge inventory or a huge, when I'm doing it every 6 months. It's like a house cleaning, right? So I go with my girlfriends, we get an Airbnb and we work the steps and we write and we share and we write and we share and we cook and we eat and we write and we share and we drink tea and we light candles and it's great. We have a great time. We started that in COVID because we used to go on retreat, but then they all stopped. And then we just decided that we really like doing it ourselves, so yeah, we just wear our PJs and work steps, for 3 days and it's great. I go to meetings. I have a sponsor that I talk to on a regular basis. I sponsor women. I am now on the board of directors for the nonprofit healthcare organization that's responsible for the rehabs that I was in.
Wow. So you're giving back.
I'm actually the chairwoman of the board this year. I was nominated.
Good for you.
Thank you so much. I was nominated by the COO back in 2016. I met him. I cut his hair at a Sport Clips that I was working at. And I said, I recognize you. You're the guy that brings the sandwiches to the halfway house on Monday nights. And he was like, you live at the halfway house? And I was like, I do. And
you're cutting my hair. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
he was so gracious and so kind. And, he was like, but I ended up selling him a couple of products for him and his son's hair, like for styling, He's like, you have great marketing ability. And then I found out that he nominated me for the board. And he said, we really need the voice. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have, but we need the voice of a client. And you also have great marketing ability. So I think that this would be really good for you. And so he nominated me and I came onto the board and that was 9 years ago. And I do community outreach events. I give what I can as far as time to the board, and it's an honor to give back to an organization that gave me so much. And this is actually my last year on the board because I'm terming out. But this year I am in fact the chairwoman, and it is really wild. It's something I never would have imagined for myself. I'm a hairstylist, like but it's been such a beautiful journey. And I'm a little sad that I'm coming off, but I also, I just started my own business. So I'm glad to have, a little bit more time for that. Meetings are huge for me. And I talk to another alcoholic every day, no matter what. Another person in program, a person in my network, whether things are going well or things are going bad, I bounce them off of someone and I also ask them how they're doing. Because the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. And so, I try to be of service where I can. And things are incredible. Absolutely incredible. I don't have any complaints.
The biggest differentiator there was that the service work that you're doing now and giving back to others. That is the most rewarding thing in the world. And it's crazy. When I first started this podcast a year ago, I'm very upfront about this. I left a career and I'm starting a new career. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start a podcast. And obviously I have to make some kind of money to continue to
Right.
do it, right? As a full-time job. But then, that full-time job, you buy that or, this or whatever, like you're living your life. Nothing felt like when someone reached out to me and said, Kevin, I listened to your podcast. I have 40 days sober today. I heard one of the episodes 40 days ago, and it prompted me to go to a meeting and get sober. So thank you so much. Please keep doing what you're doing because I listened to all the episodes. That is the most fulfilling feeling in the world. That is when you talked about looking yourself in the mirror. I could get the car, I could get the girl, I could get the house, I could get the job, whatever it is. But I wasn't able to look at myself in the mirror at the end of the
And
day.
it doesn't matter.
I couldn't take compliments from people because I didn't believe it. But then I shifted. I took a 12-step approach and came up with a primary purpose for the podcast. With each episode, I'm going to just try to help one person.
Mm-hmm.
And I focused on that. And I said, I don't care about the money. I don't care about getting a Spotify deal or not. I'm just going to continue to help one person each episode. And then that for me helped. And then I started a meeting on Monday nights as well.
Yeah.
Like I don't get paid to do a fucking meeting. Like
Right.
I'm just doing it just to create the community. And then I heard one lady say, I live in the middle of Iowa. I have like 10 days and there are no meetings out here. This is saving my life and I'm making this my home group. And I'm like, fuck, now I'm hooked forever. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but that's amazing.
It was the most amazing thing. And it's like when you do those things, and I say that because for the listener, if you're struggling with self-esteem and, constantly filling the void, go out and do something for someone else because it will build your core.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing.
When I'm struggling, I call another, person in my network and I ask them how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't immediately they pick up the phone. I'm like, oh my God, I'm having a hard time. I can't. No, I ask them how they're doing.
Yeah,
because
listen to
that's
them.
what gets me out of self.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I've had that experience where, I'm fortunate enough that my company gave me the opportunity to deliver a keynote speech back in 2022 based on my story and my recovery and to the company that I work for. So I did it in Nashville at a conference of about 2,500 people.
Wow,
And
2,500 people. That's a lot.
It's a lot of people. And of course, it was a little different then than it is today. This is a corporate setting. It's, it's a little different, but I shared my story with these people and let them know that like, no matter where they've been in their life, their story isn't over yet. And, I'm still feeling the impact of that. It's actually where the idea was born for my business, was from that moment. I had someone reach out to me this morning on Facebook Messenger. She said, hey, I just wanted you to know that, I heard you speak back in 2022, this is 3 years ago. I heard you speak and, I want you to know that you've inspired me so much. And, I'm back now and, I'm sober and I'm going to meetings and, but when I share my story at meetings, I really clam up and I really have a hard time and, I panic. So I'm wondering if you have anything that anything that you do that helps me or that can help me, with that. And my God, what an opportunity to be able to tell somebody, hey, what I try to remind myself is that I'm not the one speaking. My higher power is speaking. And when I take myself out of it, when I take my ego out of it, when I ask my higher power beforehand to let me say whatever needs to be said today to be a maximum service to other people, I'm going to say exactly what I'm supposed to. And I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's not a fear, So yeah, I mean, that is a huge part of why I do what I do now.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for taking the trip from Connecticut, coming on, the vulnerability that, it's amazing. Getting vulnerable to help another person is truly admirable. So I thank you for coming on and yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you so much. And I will give myself one plug at the very end.
Oh, please. I'm
for
sorry.
the business.
Yeah,
That's okay. No worries.
yeah.
You can check me out at www.fiercelymegan.com.
Meghan with an H.
Meghan with an H. And Fiercely is Fiercely. I am also Fiercely Meghan on Instagram, Meghan Blanchett on TikTok. But if you find any of my socials, there is a link in my bio to the rest of my socials and to my website. And, I am a professional speaker. I also do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching, and I facilitate retreats based on emotional intelligence and taking your power back, finding your peace, and healing. Those are the main cores of my message. And you can find out more information or, shoot me a message from the website.
FiercelyMeghan.com.
That's it.
MEGHAN.
That's it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.